In the first two parts of this series, we discussed different categories of law in the Old Testament, and why this means it can be perfectly legitimate to continue to observe some while ignoring others. With that groundwork set, let's invite a couple of objections from the funny atheist. Yes?
Jesus said that he came to fulfill the law, not destroy it. So that means you still ought to be obeying it.
We're not saying the law was destroyed. That's right. In fact, anyone who wants to sign on to that old covenant right now can do so. Except there'd be some problems. First of all, without a temple to perform sacrifices in, you're going to have a hard time fulfilling all your obligations. But beyond that, here in Deuteronomy 18, it says that the adherent to this covenant is to be on the lookout for a prophet like Moses. Well, Moses' job was to broker the old covenant. That was his chief distinctive. So this means that they need to look for a new prophet who is also broker of a covenant. Christians argue that that would be Jesus. So in effect, one of the rules of the old covenant is that you have to sign up for the new covenant when it's available to you. Anyway, bottom line is, no one says the law has been destroyed just because there's a new covenant. And when Jesus says he came to fulfill the law, the meaning of the word he uses is that he intends to obey it, something he had to insist upon because of charges like those made by his opponents that he was trying to break the law. Okay, what's next? Yes?
There's a lot of places where it says the law is forever, so that means you still ought to be obeying it.
Okay, look. Since the law hasn't been destroyed and you can still join the old covenant, the law isn't gone, so that's not an issue. Even so, the word used in the Hebrew translated forever is this one. And according to the leading study on this subject, which is this book, this word doesn't exactly mean forever. It means something more like in perpetuity. In other places, it's used to describe the term of an indentured servant. So unless you think that this means the servant's boss would dig the servant out of his grave and put him to work, this clearly does not mean forever in the sense that covenant would always be kept, but implies that the Jews would keep these feasts and such as long as they maintained the covenant agreement and didn't break it. At the same time, it hardly indicates that God cannot sign a new covenant or contract with others on different terms. So let's sum it up. Old Testament law has laws that belong in different categories. Some reflect universal morals, others reflect conditions specific to ancient Israel and concepts in that time, and a large group of those would be purity regulations. Finally, some laws are ritual in nature. Discussion can continue over what laws in the Old Testament belong in what category, but it is clear that the law retains a certain application today, even if not in the same way for us, and even if the fundy atheists don't have the mental tools to grasp it. Yeah, you heard me. Before I go, one more thing I want to add that should blow their minds a bit. The Old Testament law was structured like a typical ancient law code of that day. An important thing to note about such codes is reported by a scholar named Delbert Hillers in his book Covenant, The History of a Biblical Idea. In other words, the law codes were not simply blindly followed without any sort of trial or examination for applicability, or without any concern for possible mitigating circumstances. How is that important? Well, just keep that in mind for possible future vids. See ya.